What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Debbie Royale YouTube channel. We are here for week 6 of the NFL season. The injury bug is hitting us pretty hard on our fantasy football rosters. We're going to talk about navigating that. We're going to talk about the 49ers, the Cowboys. We're going to give some game previews. We're going to give our against the grain fantasy football starts as well. Stay tuned while the intro plays. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, drop a comment, all the good things. We'll see you on the other side. All right. So week 5 is in the books. It kind of hit us pretty hard on our fantasy rosters. I threw a lot of players on my personal IRs today or yesterday or whenever this is going up on the site. Thursday, before I set my lineups before the Thursday night game. Injury bug is kicking everyone's butts. Randy, how are you handling that on your fantasy football rosters? Are you panicking? Are you sad? Or I think we're all sad.
I was gonna say sad's the obvious part. The panic's a little rough. I mean, like the biggest is obviously Justin Jefferson, and that's kind of one where you're not really gonna pick up an immediate backup. The most obvious backup is Jordan Addison, talent wise, and he's already on people's rosters. Osborne's a good pickup to replace him for some snaps, but that's only gonna be a flex type of guy. You can't replace Justin Jefferson in your team. The hope is you've hit on someone like Puka Nakua and or you were able to get Cooper Kupp in the third round because of the injury or something, and you can kind of double tap this and figure it out. With Devon Achan, it's tough with him. Like you can't. He was a very late round pick, or even a waiver wire pickup randomly. So like you're not really looking to pick up his backup. I mean, that was basically Jeff Wilson who swapped positions with him in IR basically. But Mostert was still the lead back, so that's like a weird one where it doesn't deplete your roster. He was just a super flex for you basically, and now you lose that for at least 4 weeks, probably more. Just with the multitude of backs they have, there's no way they rush him back. The quarterbacks, it's tough, Anthony Richardson being the biggest. Deshaun Watson out last week, out this week. Nothing great there. But he was a middling quarterback when he was playing. Richardson was special at times. I think he's completed one full game in the NFL. But when he's been on the field, he's been electric. So that sucks. But for the most part, our advice and everyone else's advice really was take the upside of Richardson, get someone like Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins. Most weeks, I'm struggling to play Richardson over those guys. So that one doesn't hurt me as bad. But if you're in certain leagues like best ball or like Scott Fishbowl, stuff like that, like Christian, that really hurts you.
Sure does. It sure does. I did draft Gardner Minshew. I do not recommend picking him up in like season long redrafts. I think, he's probably a QB2 at best. I do think, you constantly double tapped Richardson and Cousins in leagues that we drafted together. I think that was a good move. And I think that you're right. I think that lineup decision was very difficult, especially when Richardson's been leaving games. And now he's out for probably 6 weeks, if I had to guess, just based on the nature of the injury. I do just one note on Jefferson. I was listening to a Bears podcast today, and they had a Vikings beat reporter on there from The Athletic, and he kind of suggested that KJ Osborne knows the entire playbook and Justin Jefferson's role in the playbook, whereas Addison kind of just knows his role. He knows a little bit of what Osborne's former role was. So Osborne could kind of slide into the Jefferson role, but there's really no Justin Jefferson replacement, clearly. I think Osborne could have a few good weeks, but I think Addison's definitely the play there. One question for you, though, Randy. Are you in redraft like willing to trade Justin Jefferson and Achan, or are you kind of holding them through their IR stint?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely willing to trade Achan simply because, again, there's a multitude of backs. We were never really sure what his role would be with Wilson and Mostert there if he was going to get in the field. I think he earned reps, but he earned a lot of gadget reps, and he was very explosive on that. But with Wilson back, let's see if those two can stay healthy. Because of that, teams are desperate to get running backs in. They've lost some for the season. You might be able to trade away him to kind of replenish a receiver spot that's needed. If you're somehow a team that has Justin Jefferson and HN, definitely trade away HN and hope to get any receiver back for that. Just simply because, like I said, with that, it looks like an MCL injury for him. Um, I do think he's going to be a little bit. I think 4 is the absolute floor with him coming back. Kind of the same thing as Richardson, where I'm more expecting like 6 weeks. But with that, it's just because of they got 4 backs that they like also. It's just tough for me to assume that a playoff caliber team is going to rush someone back. Whereas Jefferson, if Vikings can win a couple games here, the next 4, which is possible, I don't think he's going to be delaying getting back, even for the contract, like we're all kind of discussing. So for that, I'd rather hold off because if you trade away Jefferson now to get 2 more wins, when he's back, you're going to look real stupid. You know, Christian did that a couple times in the past with me, and he never loved it. So
Devontae Adams for Mark Ingram, baby. The worst trade I've ever made still to this day.
we should have jersey out of it, so it worked out.
It's true. I need to hang that up behind me. That's what
Right. I have a Monty one that's just not there for some reason.
Right. I had one more note on this, but I don't know. Oh, my one note is I need an injury guy to go assess why Mike McDaniel designed offenses constantly have running backs with MCL injuries. Think back to Elijah Mitchell multiple times when Mike McDaniel was coordinating that. I'm curious. This one was kind of weird. He kind of got rolled up on a little bit, but
Yeah,
it's certainly interesting. Interesting note. Speaking of the 49ers and Elijah Mitchell, I was looking at the 49ers schedule. They might be undefeated into December. Do you think that that's an unrealistic expectation for this team just based on how they've played the last few weeks?
definitely not. I do think they're almost a lock to get there. I think them and the Eagles are on just such a ridiculous trajectory to face again in the NFC Championship game, hopefully with a healthy quarterback in the 49ers side to really see an actual game. But these two teams are on such a collision course. It's what we've seen in the past. It's what we were expecting the last couple of years with Chiefs and Bills, and we got it kind of as well. It's the same thing for me.
Yeah. So a rundown of their schedule until December. Browns this week without Deshaun Watson seems like a locked in win, right?
Yeah,
Vikings also feels like a locked in win, but weird things happen, I guess. Bengals, hopefully the Bengals have rounded fully into form by then, and that's a good game. Jaguars, same kind of deal. Two tough games, but I think the 49ers will be favored by at least a score. Buccaneers after that, tough game, but winnable. Seahawks divisional matchups are iffy. And then we're out of November, their first game in December. The reason December is the cutoff is the Eagles matchup on December
exactly.
3rd. So, do you think Brock Purdy's playing at an MVP level right now?
No.
I also
Christian
don't.
McCaffrey is.
Yeah. I think this is the year that McCaffrey could go get it, especially just kind of watching what the top quarterbacks are doing at this point. I think Purdy is leading, I believe, in EPA per play, which I think that's the most correlative thing correlative stat to the MVP award. But this feels like maybe it's a McCaffrey year, which would be cool, kind of cool.
I'd hope. We kind of need a running back to win it again sometime here. But yeah, so of those games, I mean, I think the divisional game against Seahawks, that's tough. But Bengals coming out of their bye is definitely the scariest to me. There's a chance T. Higgins sits out this week again to get even more healthy. Burrow gets a week of rest to try and get back to full strength or close to it. If he can move it all in the pocket, Burrow becomes even more deadly. Not necessarily running the ball, but him just having more mobility is what he's one of his best traits to extend plays and make the biggest plays downfield that he can. So if he can get a little bit closer to full health for that game, I think that's the game they lose of those, but I still think they win.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could be looking at an undefeated 49ers team. And I actually, past the Eagles game, divisional matchups. So Seahawks again, Cardinals, Ravens is a tough one towards the end of the season on Christmas, actually. And then Commanders. Oh, there's a lot of games on Christmas this year. I forgot it's Sunday. Commanders, and then they close out with the Rams. But I think there's an actual shot that they go undefeated. They're going to have some slip up at some point, but I think they clearly have the best chance to do that this year and go undefeated. So
Yeah.
On the other side of things, the team that they just clobbered the other night, I guess the question is, so we've just talked about how good the 49ers are. We think they're going to win a ton of games, but are the Cowboys overrated? Are they good? I mean, we haven't seen a really good performance since Trayvon Diggs went down. The defense has been a little underwhelming. The defense needed to carry them because Mike McCarthy's offense is not good, really at all. Do you think that the Cowboys are like even a playoff team at this point or a contender? What are you thinking about them right now?
I think they're a playoff caliber team, not a contender. Their ceiling is very, very high. I don't think it's as high as the Eagles and 49ers, but their floor is so low. They can play super bad. Obviously, that's led by the quarterback, but there's games, we've already seen it, where the running game's taken out. It's all on Dak. Pressure's getting to him quicker and quicker, it seems like. And this offense, like you said, isn't well schemed. They have talent everywhere, but it seems like they're forcing the ball to Cooks a little bit. There's picks that have been coming off of that. They need to figure out a few things. However, their division, minus the Eagles, has been pretty rough this year. Um, NFC South, while they're all contending with each other, has been rough. And then you got 49ers basically dominating that division with Seahawks and Rams looking decent, Cardinals being better than they should be. And then you're competing for 3 wild card spots with the Rams. I mean, do I think they both can get in? Sure, but like I think there's some good easy wins there that the Cowboys should be able to get in the playoffs and then get demolished by the Eagles.
Yeah. A rundown of their schedule. So they get the Cowboy or the Chargers on Monday Night Football this week. Then they have those Rams, Eagles, Giants. That feels like the most winnable of those, honestly. I think they can probably get the Rams, but they'd have to play a lot better than they did the last couple of weeks. I know they just won against the Patriots 38-3. That one doesn't really count. I'm kind of going back 2 weeks when they played the Cardinals and lost. Panthers, so they have a nice little stretch. Giants, Panthers, Commanders. And I kind of think that that's your like get right period because then you finish with Seahawks, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, and then Commanders as your final game. But like that's a that's a stretch, man. Like I could see this team
Yeah.
being 9-8 when we're done.
Yeah, very. I'd be shocked if they have 11 wins. Is how I'd put. Like I'd almost lock in between 8 to 10 wins for this team, and that's why I'm like I think they're a playoff team because I think this year in the NFC that might make it, just because the top two are demolishing everyone and really keeping the divisional races tight, and you have some of the bottom feeding or supposed to be bottom feeding teams of division competing very difficultly with everyone else. I do think the Giants will get something back here. Commanders are playing everyone tough, even though they're not necessarily playing the best football. So there's a lot of things there where I think they can sweep the Commanders, possibly sweep the Giants, and just bolster their record just enough to get them in.
Yeah, I mean, I only feel confident picking them in 4 of those games, and they're 3-2 right now. So I mean, like 7, I think is the floor, but they'll
Yeah.
probably squeak out a couple of wins here and there too. So, but yeah, we probably overrated them heading into this year. We also couldn't project a Trayvon Diggs injury, and he is very
Yeah.
important to that defense. So it's a bummer. All right, let's get into our game previews. We are talking Seahawks at Bengals, Lions at Bucks, and Eagles at Jets this week. And I know you're probably thinking those can't be the best games on the slate. Maybe not, but I feel like all the best games are the teams that we talk about every week. I think Cowboys Chargers is probably a good one. I feel like we've talked about the Cowboys 3 of the 5 weeks already. So
Yeah. And
sorry.
that also is one of those games that has the potential to be a snooze fest because both those offenses have been kind of hit or miss this year, uh, despite Keenan Allen. But
Right.
so it's one of those like I think it'll be a good game like score wise, competitive wise. I mean, but I don't know if it's gonna be 28-32 or something. It might be 20-21, and we're like, eh.
Yeah, I do want to. I don't know that the Cowboys offense, I mean, they started off really well. I don't know that they have 32 in their bag anymore. I
No,
don't
that
know.
was probably more Chargers side, if I'm gonna be honest.
That's yeah, that's fair. All right, let's talk about Seahawks at Bengals. Seahawks are not favored. The Bengals are home favorites in this one, but the line is plus 100 on the -3. So it's, as close as you could possibly get. We've talked about how a 3-point home favorite's really not a favorite, and the odds kind of show that. The over-under in this one is 47.5. We're coming off of a legendary Jamar Chase game after he said, "I'm always effing open," and then he was. And Joe Burrow could get him the ball because he had a little bit more pocket mobility. He looked a lot better. Seahawks coming off their bye week. I do, off of the bye, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably more involved in this offense. They're hoping that offensive line plays a little bit better. How are you seeing this game play out? Are you interested in Jackson Smith and Jigba as like a flyer flex play, or are you staying away from that?
No, that's a tough. Like, I don't want to play. I said on here last week with the rookies, you want to play them, especially in DFS, before the boom happens. Like we did, like my suggestion with Addison last week. Unfortunately, the boom happened for other reasons, kind of. But
Right.
with JSN, it's tough. The Seahawks have always been, under Pete Carroll at least, kind of standoffish on the rookies, not going to overly input them to the offense right off the bat. I do think out of a bye week, there's a chance he gets more involved, but they've been feeding backup tight ends touches. They're super focused on running the ball, which is what they should be. I'm definitely concerned with that with JSN. I just want to see it before I can confidently play it because we were questioning the whole time if they could play three receivers truly, and we haven't truly seen it. So yeah, I'm out on him, especially because the Bengals have been not the best run defense, and you have two stellar running backs. I think that's the focus for Seattle out of the bye.
Yeah. I do want to mention, though, so Jackson Smith and Jigba has been playing the first few weeks with that injured hand. I do think that that's probably going to feel and look a lot better. Jackson was inching towards Tyler Lockett's snap count. He wasn't quite there, but 29-38, and they did run a little more 11 personnel in their last matchup in week 4. So I'm interested to see what that looks like. On the other side of things, I'm fairly comfortable playing almost every one of these games. Tyler Boyd? Any interest in Boyd in this one?
Only if Higgins is out and it's like a deep flex. There's only 2 teams on bye this week. We're not super hurting. You might be at wide receiver, possibly if you somehow, are losing Jefferson and someone else. But other than that, I'm not looking to play him.
That's fair. Yeah, me neither. I asked that because I have him on a ton of teams, on my dynasty teams. I'm like, man, I should have gotten out of this like 3 years ago.
Strange. I don't know why that's a thing.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah, I guess the pick for this game, I think the Seahawks are going to go in there and steal a win here. I think this is a clear over game, even though the line is fairly high. But I think this is going to be a pretty high scoring affair with the Seahawks pulling away late.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. I think they're able to just destroy the Bengals rush defense and run down their throats the whole game. I think Kenneth Walker is an enormous day.
Good to know. Good to know. All right, next game. Lions at Bucks. Lions are 3-point road favorites, minus 118 on that, plus 3 on the other side, minus 102. So once again, kind of suggesting that the Lions are actual favorites in this game. Over under is 42. There was a big panic, I guess, about what Dan Campbell said this week about Monty being a workhorse type of back that could handle 20 touches, and Jahmyr Gibbs is the change of pace back. The same things that he's been saying, since like the draft or since they signed David Montgomery. Yet people just, I think, have convinced themselves that it's going to be a little bit different. And it may be down the stretch, but right now Montgomery looks fantastic. The Lions are 4-1. Things are working. This is also a game where the Bucks have a pretty good run defense. Might not be a Monty game, might be more of a Gibbs game, and it'll be really funny for me to see everyone's reaction to that after those comments from Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I struggle with it just because, it's should be more of a Gibbs game in that regard. Monty's going to get the goal line touches. Those might not be successful. I think he's going to get, his easy lion share of the touches. Gibbs should be playing. I want to preface with that too.
Right.
Same with
Yeah.
Amon-Ra. They both should be playing, but we'll see. But with the linebackers for Tampa Bay, it always kind of scares me off of tight ends and running backs. The speed that they have is just ridiculous, and they can get lateral as fast as those running backs. And Gibbs really needs space to be the most efficient that he can be. Yeah, I don't, but I really don't understand why people are freaking out about that comment. That's exactly why they signed him, because Jamal Williams couldn't get 30 touches a game. He couldn't be just a full workhorse kind of back. Monty can do that, and he can plot away and get through it. He can catch a few balls, but he can't do what Gibbs can do, and Gibbs can't do what he can do. It's a good pairing. It's a lot like Kamara when he came out. He needed that other guy. He needed to get more weight and more power in his legs to keep it going. I think we'll get there one day with Gibbs, like we are with Kamara at this point in his career. But right now, I'm full sending both every week, and it really just pains me because I
That's
really
fair.
don't want to play Gibbs at this point. But you drafted him high enough, you probably have to.
I'm sitting him in one league, but it's a dynasty league where I have like a veteran option that I can throw in instead.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. I actually think I have a decision, Gibbs or Rashad White in the same game, and I'm rolling with Rashad White, despite the Lions, defense
Yeah.
being good as well. It's not a great
It's,
matchup for either running back.
yeah, exactly. That's what my point was going to be. It's a rough one for either running back room where someone's going to do enough to be fantasy relevant. And if I'm going to have to guess there, it has to be Monty for touchdowns.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Some injury news. We are recording this on Thursday night, so there may be more injury news by the time you see this. But Sam Laporta missed a practice this week. Amon-Ra and Gibbs were like limited at times. Mike Evans also missed a practice with an injury, and I think that's something to note because I think that the Bucs offense is really kind of thriving because of what Evans can do. Baker Mayfield has been very successful in targeting him. I think that would be a big loss and probably what sways the game for me a little bit, because I do think this Bucs team is a bit underrated still. There's a lot of signs pointing to Baker Mayfield regressing. I'm not really worried about it. I think they're a well-constructed offense. I think they can move the ball. I think this is going to be a fantastic game to watch, but I'm not loving it for fantasy.
Yeah, I think the best plays of the week will be big. Like this game, we're going to need some big plays, or Monty getting in the end zone, or Laporta playing and getting in the end zone. Amon-Ra should be fine if he's good to go. I don't see anyone in that Bucs defense stopping him. But other than that, it's flex plays all around.
Yeah, I think Godwin's an okay play for what it's
Yeah,
worth.
I struggle. Playing the Saints, we kind of knew Evans would be taken out of the game, like he always is.
Yeah.
And this offense really struggled with that option gone. I think he's almost vital with the Baker-led offense to have that big body threat to really save him a little bit of the time. Where a lot of us kind of thought Godwin, because he can get open quick, would be the go-to. It's definitely not. So I'm hoping he does step up though.
Yeah. I'm going to go Lions, and I'm going to go just barely over. Barely.
Yeah, I'll go Lions, and I'm
I'm
gonna go
talking
pretty
like,
comfortably over.
see, yeah, like I see like a 24-21 game or something like that.
That's over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
Yeah,
like that's close enough, I think. I'd be comfortable, some betting advice, I'd be comfortable moving that line up to 44 is I guess what I'm saying if you
yeah.
have the ability in your betting app. So,
It's tough because I'm pretty confident the Bucks can score 20 to 27, and I'm very confident the Lions can score 20 to 40. So
yeah.
at that point, especially against the defenses, you might have to throw more this week. I'm happy to have the over there.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, quickly through our last game, Eagles at Jets. This is the Sunday night game, I believe. -7 on the Eagles, or 7-point favorites here at -110. And then same odds on both sides. And then the under is 41 in this game. The reason I wanted to highlight this one, the Eagles to me seem like that team that they're kind of rolling, but also there are some signs that like a good defense could really hamper them for a week. And we always have these surprise games where A team that you don't expect to win competes. We think of this Jets team against the Chiefs a few weeks ago where a fumble doesn't happen and the Jets probably beat the Chiefs. I think we could be looking at a similar game script in this one. I think the Jets do enough on defense to kind of give the Eagles problems. I think Brees Hall is looking as good as he has. My hang up, of course, is the quarterback. I think Zach Wilson's looked better, but I just worry that the Eagles defense might actually find their rhythm against him as well.
Yeah, I would rather say my hangup is the Eagles defense than the Jets offense. I mean,
It's
Brees
fair.
Hall looked great last week. Garrett Wilson's been, ridiculous. Lazard has been really complimentary. Conklin stepping up, the offensive line stepping up even through injuries. So, and Wilson looked better with more freedom. It's just, I mean, no one is a good quarterback with Jordan Davis getting to you from under center in a second. So
Yeah.
there's nothing you could do there. Their Eagles possibly getting linebackers back. They're looking a little bit more healthy on defense. It's tough. I do get what you're saying though on offense, especially when the Eagles haven't been able to run the ball, which this kind of defense that the Jets have can stop that kind of thing. Not that Hurts has been terrible throwing the ball by any means, but when you have Sauce Gardner who can kind of take away AJ Brown as best as anyone really can, then it's really on Devonta. You do still have a good corner too. It's a bad matchup on both sides. I'm kind of curious. Like these are top end guys for fantasy. You have to play everyone, right?
Here's the thing, man. I'm really considering sitting Garrett Wilson. I'm also considering sitting Swift. But like the running back landscape this week is rough, as
Yeah.
it is every week. And so like in one league, I think I played Jaleel McLaughlin over Swift, maybe by accident because I didn't see it in time. But that's why I made that joke about setting my lineups. I definitely forgot on like 3 teams. But um those are the 2 players that I think I'm like, I don't love it, but you have to play the studs, right? I think especially after Goddard's last week too. I think you play Goddard in
Yeah,
this
you have
one.
to play Goddard. Yeah, those are kind of the two biggest. Swift is the biggest question in my mind. Wilson has been a question, but it's only because of Zach Wilson. Uh,
Right.
he could pretty much get open almost against anyone. I don't know if it's this enormous electric game, but I think he can at least be a playable piece for you as long as Wilson isn't in complete panic mode.
Yeah.
Um, but Swift, man, like he's gonna have to bounce outside to make any plays, in my opinion, and that's gonna be tough.
Yeah. You have to play AJ Brown. I don't love doing it this week.
Yeah,
I think this is more of a Devontae Smith game, personally.
yeah, but I said that last week, and
That's fair. That's fair. I think he had his first catch in the late third or maybe early
yeah,
fourth. It was rough. Yeah, I'm going Jets to cover, and I'm going under. Under.
I'll go Eagles in the points, and I'll go. If I'm taking the points, I gotta go over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
plain and simple.
Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here, we're gonna go through our against the grain fantasy starts. Once again, you're just on a roll. Who did you have last week?
Jordan Addison.
Yeah, yeah. So everyone, listen to Randy. Play this player, Randy. Who is your against the grain fantasy start this week?
Josh Downs. So obviously, we talked about Anthony Richardson being down. Gardner Minshew's down the quarterback. Um, Downs has quickly become the target 2 in this offense under Gardner Minshew, and I think he could continue to thrive in this divisional game against the Jaguars. Jaguars offense looking better last week. They do have to fly back from London finally, so maybe there's a little bit of a hang up there. But this Jags defense has been giving up points to receivers. They're bottom 10 in yards for receptions to receivers and touchdowns. This isn't necessarily Downs' biggest quality getting touchdowns, but I do think he's going to get another uptick in targets. He's pretty much with Gardner, he's averaging 6 targets, over 4.5 catches, about 60 yards. I think we can get above that this week. I think we can get an easy flex performance. If he can fall into the end zone, we're ecstatic with 16, 18 points this week. And that's big money from a guy that you definitely didn't draft unless you loved him like us, or you definitely picked up in waivers and you're this could be a guy that's helping you along until Justin Jefferson gets back. I'm very easily playing Josh Downs over a lot of people this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, you know how much I love Josh Downs.
Yeah.
It's a couple weeks ago on the Dynasty show, we chatted about like Downs being involved in all these trades. I'm like, man, I just don't love the idea of trading him right now, especially that the outlook for Josh Downs, long term, I think is fantastic, and I think he's arguably their best receiver right now. So, I still love Pittman, but I still think you can make a case that Downs is going to be the most consistent one there.
Yeah, and I think the target share with Gardner, I think Downs is like 24%, with Pittman being like 28. So they're neck and neck with Gardner. And we know Gardner's going to have this team throwing the ball a little bit more consistently than Richardson has been. In the future, it'll be the same. But this isn't the greatest rushing matchup either for Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss. This Jags defense is definitely easily more susceptible to the passing attack.
Yeah, for sure. All right, my guy this week is Baker Mayfield. Just talked about this game, but it's one of those games where I think a lot of things could happen. I think the Lions could start to run up the score a little bit, and I think the Bucs will have to keep up. Now, the caveat, I put this in here before I saw the Mike Evans news. I'm hoping that Mike Evans does play in this game. I think if Mike Evans is out, I pivot off of this. But if Mike Evans plays, I think this Bucs offense is good enough to move the ball and score some points. And I think Baker Mayfield, while he hasn't been the most fantasy relevant quarterback this year, he's 17th in fantasy points per game. The Lions, while they aren't giving a ton of points up to quarterbacks because of how they've kind of controlled games, I'm not necessarily certain that they are capable of stopping this Bucs offense because, like I said, it's a well-designed offense. Baker's playing out of his mind right now. He's got the one slip up this year, but I truly think that he's going to probably throw 2 to 3 touchdowns in this game. I think he'll rack up a ton of yards. I think if Evans is out, he would still be able to get the ball out to Chris Godwin and kind of, get some yak to kind of boost those numbers. I think Baker's probably like a low end QB1, but there are plenty of quarterbacks on this slate that I would be comfortable playing Baker over.
It's fair. See, that's like, I think Baker's a really good play. The Lions, as we know, are a good rush defense. They've given up 4 quarterbacks 16 plus points, 17 plus points, and Baker's had over 16 points in 3 of his games already. I think he absolutely has potential to get over 20 and get a couple touchdowns this week. He's also rushing the ball 3 to 5 times a game. I think that's relatively good in this kind of matchup, to where he can scamper in the end zone like we've seen him do a lot, especially when they can't run the ball up the middle against this team.
Yeah, for sure. For what it's worth, the Lions are 18th in the NFL against fantasy quarterbacks. So I think that it's not it's a medium matchup. And I think those are the matchups that Baker Mayfield should be able to take advantage of in this offense.
Yeah, I think we're looking with Evans of a floor of 15 points with a ceiling of, we've seen Baker get over 30. I don't think we're getting that, but I think he can easily get 20, 25 points this week. And that's very easily streamable this week.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that'll do it. Make sure you guys drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you're playing Josh Downs, because you've got to ride the hot hand. And Randy literally hasn't missed this year. He is batting 100, I think. Batting 1,000.
That's a lot of chinks. I'm just knocking on everything right now.
I said batting 100. You're batting 1,000, not batting 100. That would be a terrible batting average.
It's just the show.
You're right. Yeah, that's fair. Make sure you guys drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're listening to this on the podcast forum, head over to YouTube. Drop us a like there as well. Randy, anything to add before we bounce?
So it's rainy weekend here in Milwaukee. I'm ready to watch some great red zone because I'm not going to be watching this Browns game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.